And each business is different. They really are. We're not trying to step on toes, but we are taking a light crack at tradition. And what happens is it kind of comes down to this right here. Shannon mentioned this right here, but guess what? When you start dealing with systems, that entails multiple pieces working together in some sort of a fashion. And so, like everything that Adilas does, there are actually other software companies that do it. However, there's thousands of companies that do this type of stuff, but it's own individual teeny little things. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do this type of a deal where you go like this. Here's kind of an overview of our system. There's a lot of intricate little parts of this, but where you're playing, we can do this. And at the heart of the thing, this is one of the biggest things that people have actually been missing in my mind, is right here. Okay, objects. I'm not talking just a flat file or just a paper document or something simple like that. It's an object. It has relationships. It has subs. It has potentially even different dates and states and statuses, and can have texture and just kind of cool stuff like that. This is at the heart. These are the two things at the heart of our map. We purposely put things in certain spots to kind of be like, okay, one, they fit with flow, okay, but two, what is central? What are the corner pieces of what we have going on, okay? What are the incomings? What are the outgoings, basically? How do things rise to the top towards management? Like, there's a lot of thought that was actually put into this particular graphic as far as what goes on and how we can kind of explain things. So, Don, I know you do graphics, and I know I'm going to actually be using you a little bit to do some graphics, but this is kind of some of the stuff that I'm actually looking for. We can explain it and explain it and explain it, but a simple little two-frame graphic might do more than what I could go blah, 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 blah for a lot. So anyway, that's what we need help with. It's cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Can I make one more comment?
Absolutely.
It appears to me, again, maybe unintentional on your part or intentional, or maybe something that's just an overarching concept, but the way these little pieces in this map work together are ideally the way people in an organization should work together. Ideally, you would share that information with your friend in accounts receivable, or you would make sure that the bank knows this. And sometimes in the non-ideal setting, we don't, or we won't share, and we should. We should work in a flow across an organization in the same way that this works. So it's also a teaching model as well, if you will.
If you're okay, I'm going to grab my marker, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I want to show you something. Okay, this is kind of fun. It's got pros and cons. Okay. Traditionally, this is how things are kind of established. Okay, you have your operations over here, you have your accounting over here, and there is a very large gap. Every once in a while, you may have some stuff trickling across or whatever, but you play in your own little environments. Okay, and so this gap is very hard to disseminate and do some things. So what we decided to do was we're like, well, hey, let's just see if we can zipper this thing up, a little bit. Kind of slowly bring it together, cog at a time, and kind of like make the little zipper type deal. So instead of like having this big huge gap, we start it here, and then we progress it linear this way. And if we need to, we can add permissions, no problem. Like little gaps. I'm not drawing it very good right now, but like we would prefer it to run this way. If something happens, we go like this. And if we need to map to it, we map to these different spots versus this is my world. This is your world. Even though we're on the same team, we're not really working together. Okay. I'm going to erase this and show you one other thing that I think is kind of cool of where things are going. I'm hesitant even to say this sometimes, but sometimes there's a thing called tradition. Okay. What we're trying to do is we're trying to move things in a linear fashion as much as possible according to permissions, states and statuses, and mapping, and just in time, and like kind of, it's literally like an assembly line for business data, okay? However, the traditional model, if we drew this traditional model again, here, if I'm an accountant and this is operations, where we have had the most resistance has actually been right over here in this party. Not completely, but certain ones that are very, very based in traditional spots. What happens is guess what? They were actually the power go-to. Say you have admin here. Operations is happening. They may be able to communicate a little bit, but eventually accounting has to happen. And accounting was the one who conversed with admin. Okay? And so that was actually kind of almost like their own little stopgate. Okay? So what happened is as soon as we start putting things on a linear fashion, we changed their job from the master controller, nobody gets past me, I'm the only one that has access to all numbers, all data, all everything. Don't worry that there's a huge month or two gap here, but I have full power and control. I'm not trying to make this sound bad, I'm just trying to state it, okay? What happens is we change the job and we start adding checkpoints here along the way and permission this accordingly. What happens is instead of them being the major controller of this whole door and communications and power, admin now is able to look at anything that happens at any point in time, okay? And so all of a sudden, their role, instead of it being this hardcore power stopper, it's now an approver and a passer-on and a, yeah, that's good data, or oh, I need to make these extra special tweaks. And so some people have actually been very challenged because we have technically changed the job of accounting to more of an approver and a passer-on type person, like a lead on a line versus a line worker or the head chef over the whole company. And so I have seen it already. There have been certain people who have been like that, and it's threatening to them because we're technically changing that job title. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? It's about change, okay? It's a great little story about little mice people and little human people. It's an awesome movie, but what happens is upper management are the human people, okay? And eventually they run out of cheese, and the mouse, and his name is Sniff and Scurry. There's two different ones. Scurry runs all over the place. What's coming up? What's coming up? What's coming up? Sniff puts his nose in the air and says, oh, smells like technology's going over this way. He's going to go towards where his nose is, okay? The two human characters are Hem and Haw. Hem kind of hems himself in, makes it all safe. Like, this is where he's trying to do, okay? I'm not trying to say anything, but often you have management who kind of does this type of thing. Okay, I've got my job, they rely on me, I'm super important, da, da, da. Like, I'm not even trying to say that it's necessarily like that, but Haw, he was the other character in this, this particular book. This was actually by, don't quote me on this, I believe it's Spencer Johnson, he's a doctor, but it's a book and a little movie if you wanted to, Who Moved My Cheese? Haw, he eventually says, doggone it, you know what, I'm here with you, Hem, but there's no cheese left, there's no cheese, like, shouldn't we, like, go out? No, it'll be back. It's always been here. It's always been here. Tradition, 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 okay? So eventually what happens is over time, they break holes in the walls, and they try to do different things, and they're just being busy, but it's not being effective at all. And eventually, Haw, he's the other character, he's like, dude, I got to go out in the maze and check it out. So he puts his shoes back on, kind of goes out, and he starts writing on the wall a little bit. Like, oh, don't go down this one. That didn't work. Oh, don't go down. Like, he starts recording, and he starts laughing at himself a little bit. That's why they call him Haw. Just kind of like, that was funny. I can't believe that I was so scared to do this. That wasn't that hard. And so anyway, I'd highly recommend the book. It's a very simple read, but what ends up happening is somebody has moved the cheese. It's called time and technology and all kinds of stuff, okay? This model dates back to this date, 1494. Guess what happened in 1492?
Called Sail the Ocean Blue.
Okay, guess what happened 2 years later in 1494?
Double entry accounting.
Double entry accounting, the first math textbook. There was a guy by the name of Luca Pacioli, okay? He's considered the father of accounting. Basically, he was a math wizard, and he created the first, like, we're talking Renaissance, like the printing press just barely came out, and they were able to make the first textbook. He's like, hey, just so you know, the people in Italy, all the merchants, this is how they're tracking all their stuff. It was a paper model. Well, guess what? The same model has existed for over 500 years. This is a model where things are going, okay? I'm going to show you cause and effect. I'm going to record the whole story. I'm going to virtually map back in time. I'm going to use technology, use databases. We're not using paper, we're using objects. I can now connect, I can have relationships, I can have moving parts. This is no longer stick figure, this is no longer, you have to realize things are changing. Like if I were to ask you right this second, how many of you guys would like a computer that was built 10 years ago? Could you even give it away in some ways?
Yeah, I won't even take it.
Okay, so that's a secondhand story. I want you to know things are breaking, okay? And I'm not trying to say yes or no, or I'm not trying to make any political statements, but just because of the nature of the beast and where we are at, things are going forward. They're going faster and faster. Tanya's like, wow, my daughter's now dating somebody from Australia, and like, that's transcontinental. And she's like, I wish there was a way we could travel faster and faster and faster. Years and years and years ago, you wouldn't even have that problem, okay? But like, things are changing. And so what we need to do is we basically need to kind of change along with that. And one of the ways that we do it, one of the ways that we have attacked it, is we said, let's do this. Objects and data over time, we'll track it using permissions and settings, create objects and allow systems to interconnect together. We'll allow, this is literally a crack at tradition, okay? We didn't start here. This was not our goal, okay? This is all cool and stuff like this. Can I show you where we started? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but it might actually show you how this thing came about. Lots of times, I'm going to just grab my marker one more time. Here's where we started. Our pain, we had big, huge vehicles and trailers and RVs and toppers and all this kind of stuff. You're talking between $5,000 and $30,000 a piece, and you have 100 of them. And then you have multiple locations. So this was our next problem, called the location. Okay, this is where we do tax stuff and all that kind of stuff. It's tied to a location. You have Montrose, Colorado, Salida, Colorado, Canyon City, Colorado, Rifle, Colorado, you know, et cetera, like Pueblo and Springs, and all of a sudden you have a problem because you have stuff spread all over the place. We also had users, and these users needed to be able to talk to these different little pieces as far as what's going on. Okay, these were kind of our first little pieces that we actually introduced into the system. We created a small little thing that was basically inventory tracking, who sold it, who's it selling to, and where is it located. That's it. That was the starting of our thing. After we got done with that, guess what the next project was? Well, heck, if we have users, why don't we add this? It's such a pain for us to do the little, like the little physical time clock, okay? So you have to line it up, you go and you stamp it. And it gives you, it does give you a date and time stamp, but guess what the accountant has to do in the back end?
Enter it all in.
They have to enter this all in, convert it all to hundredths of an hour instead of a 60th of an hour, basically, because you have 60 seconds and 60 minutes. So you're converting everything. Basically what you do is you have to figure out your total seconds divided by 3,600. I'm just trying to be semi-technical for fun, but like you have to do all this math in order to get a physical number. Hey, he worked 10.5 hours. We added a time card because we had users, and they were already doing their stuff. Like, this is literally like the process that we went through. What it is it goes back to this, okay? Where do things start? Where's your pain at? Oh, sweet, let's take that step, okay? We had no clue even what was happening. That wasn't even remotely close. So once we kind of got these little pieces, guess what happened next? We need our parts department. Our parts department is terrible. We're doing our paper tickets. We have 5 different locations. We're ordering from vendors. I have no clue even what's at Montrose or what's at Salida or whatever. So when we introduced this actually introduced a bunch of things. We needed vendors and POs to get it in here. We needed basically special line items and invoices and quotes to kind of go through some sort of an interface to a shopping cart. Okay, that kind of created a little bit of a point of sale type thing. Stock units were not even connected to invoices. This is actually very common even today. Okay, nowadays we can sell stock units and elements of times and et cetera, all from our invoice. But when we first started, we didn't have all of these pieces. As we got these pieces, guess what the next little piece came up? Wow, I can kind of see what somebody owes me. Whoa, I just pulled some pieces in. How much do I owe them? Like just reports, not even just reports. Hey, I bought this, how much was it? Okay, and then over on the other side, you're physically, literally we were still doing this type of the model, okay, for years and years and years and years, operations and accounting, and we were trying to flip-flop back and forth. But over here, this was building and building and building more and more and more, and we were able to get more and more reports, and so they were able to feed this more and more. Okay, eventually what happened was we're like, oh my goodness, check this out. Now that we have stock units and invoices, what if we actually pulled some payroll reports? Because they're still tied to kind of all these little things, and maybe we'll even pull in some of the hours that they're working. Like step by step, it just kind of slowly started growing and growing and growing. We're like, okay, cool, that's awesome. So now what? I don't know, what's next? Well, heck, we've got all this money right here that just barely is sitting here. This is money that's in the cash drawer. What if I was able to do this? Well, I know you want to do deposits, and I know you want to eventually pay for this payroll that you're now able to pull some reports. But guess what that's going to entail? Okay? You're going to need expenses and deposits and banks and splits and REIs. Splits is basically payments on account. Okay? What do I owe? And the reason it's called splits is actually due to how it's paid off. So very similar to how we just applied payments to that multiple invoices. Well, say if you owed a vendor, say I was buying stock units again, and I bought 10 trailers from him, and later on we got another load of 10 trailers, and say they were even going to different locations. Eventually I need to pay for all of that. Payments on account. Splits. The reason we call it splits is it's very hard to write payments on account. No, I'm just kidding. We split a bigger payment, say $100,000, we split it into all of the little subs, kind of disseminating it all back to this payments on account, the splits. REIs, whoa, I've got money that I was spending, but I need to be reimbursed. So REIs is short for reimbursement. Okay? So this kind of came in, when we added expenses here, it says, cool, we can play here, here, here. We can play in accounts receivable. We can pay for POs. We could potentially do refunds. We could do, I know that the map is kind of starting to get a little bit more clustered, but what ended up happening is as we got further and further along, pretty soon I was like, oh my goodness, guess what? These are the two biggest, hardest things. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this for just a second, okay? I know that it's kind of building, but I wanted to show you something next. Once we were able to automate this guy and this guy, which are two of the biggest pieces inside of your accounting, okay? And we had banks, which tied to these two guys right here, okay? So the AP, your accounts payable, check it out. I had a vendor, PO, I got items in. Did I pay for it? Yes or no? Oh, I did pay for it. Yeah, cool. Like, that's all automated, the whole thing. Accounts receivable, oh, cool. Customers coming in, invoice, pulled out some items, some stock units, maybe I sold some time, whatever. Oh, eventually I have something that they owe me, or I have monies that can deposit to bank, okay? So once we got these two pieces automated, literally what happened was is upper management for the company that we were working with were like, oh, we have 3/4 of our entire financials right here sitting in front of us, and it's all been developed from step by step by step by step. Let's take the next step. Sweet. Okay, like basically that's how it got built. If you were to do any other system in the entire world, you would basically go like this. Cool, I'm an operations system. I'm going to get my marker because it's a little easier to see. I'm an operations system. I'll let you do this little piece. Oh, you want to invoice that too? That might be a different pair of software. Like, okay. Or, oh, I'm the accounting. Watch this. I'm going to start right with your balance sheet. Set this up, and then you tell me what you sold or how we're going to fit everything. Like, it literally, they start here. We call it cart and horse, but basically, that's where they would start. Okay, whoa. We got to set this whole thing up. This is personality-wise, okay? And this is not a pro or a con, but your salespersons. What's their personality? What do you think a personality of a salesperson is, Cheryl?
People person.
People person. They're great. They're good talkers. What else about them?
They kind of think on the fly.
Okay, awesome.
They don't necessarily, I mean, they know this kind of big, huge border, but they can kind of manipulate it here and here. So they're really not a rigid person.
Okay, correct. This is their world right here. They don't even care about stuff coming in necessarily. They've got to do this. They've got to make the deal, okay? this is where they live, okay? It's quick, it's fast, it's fun, it's like, I'm gonna, oh, I wanna make this deal, I'm okay to throw in 3 extras of these in order to make the deal. Okay, that's their mentality, okay? What's the mentality when we get up in here?
Oh, very rigid.
I'm teasing, but like, there's totally a difference, okay? They want things stacked. They want rows and columns. They want rules. They want, whoa, you can't do that. They want different pieces of this puzzle, okay? And they technically are totally different monsters in some way. So what we try to do inside of Adilas, and Tanya, if you're okay, I'm going to keep drawing on this piece of paper here, because it helps them to do it, okay? So ideally, they are looking for this type of a model, okay? Operations, and I'm perfectly able to track it with my accounting, okay? Everything is perfect, it's rigid, it's great, I'm happy, like, I'm satisfied. Here's what I propose and where we're trying to take it. Instead of doing a perfectly rigid thing, here's what happens. Even this morning, the invoice, the person calls, hey, that needs to be 14 tables, and I need 2 more lava lamps or the hurricane lamps. Guess what you have to do in this type of a model? Crap, I have to make an adjustment. Okay, that hurts, so all of a sudden you have to go like this. Okay, oh, that doesn't, I hate that. Something else happens. Oh, crud, I have to adjust that now. Like, it's no fun for them to even jump out of that thing to make something happen. Here's what we propose, okay? Operations is on the top. I'm kind of creating some categories here, okay? So what this is, I want you to think of like an assembly line. Objects and data over time, this is what we're proposing right here. Okay? So watch this. The object starts. Each little section has checkpoints that we don't allow it to pass through, okay? The object comes in, and if nobody advances the ball, it stays in this cool little area right here, okay? And I'm able to virtually map back to it. As soon as somebody advances that ball, it will then go into this next little holding area until it gets advanced. If something happens really quick, I can run through all of those doors, but I basically do this. Here's what I can do. Instead of making these little adjustments, I virtually map back to these different little holding areas and or checkpoints as far as how things actually happen over time. So just as a for instance, let's talk an invoice, okay? So you have your salesperson who's the wheeler and the dealer, okay? The wheeler and the dealer, and they're doing this, and they're trying to get the deal done, and they created it. Boom, they started the process. It's sitting right here, okay? What the accountant then does is that good data? Did they get everything they need? Do I have all my pieces? Oh, that's good. I'll let it advance. Maybe we'll even pay them on that. Oh, cool. Now I'm going to deposit it. Now I'm going to, whatever. That's good data. I'll let it flow. But you basically have these little waiting rooms, if you will. Tons of virtual waiting rooms. Look at this entire line right here, okay? This entire line, it does have users in here, but this entire thing deals with time, okay? AP waiting room, accounts payable. Something's happening over time. I owe somebody some money. Whether it's for a small little thing or multiple things or whatever, something's happening over time. Guess what? Something's happening over time, and I'm allowing for flex. And then I'm pulling it back in saying, oh, I am going to advance that. That's good. Let it flex. Pull it back in. Let it flex. Pull it back in. Okay? This whole middle section here almost deals with time. This is one of the key elements that has been missing in almost every single system that I have ever seen as far as doing it. We didn't start here. What happened was it was literally operations started, and we kept taking that next step. So check this out. How do permissions play along with this? Watch this. I'm going to actually switch markers so I can actually get like a little pen tool here. What if we said like this? Okay, Jimmy, guess what? You only get to play in this little spot right here. As soon as you do your sale, you advance the ball. Okay? What if you said, okay, Sally, guess what? You can check to see if Jimmy did good. Okay, Sherry, guess what? You're going to be doing payroll. And guess what? Oh, maybe somebody else is clear at the financial level. These could be permissions, checkpoints, all sorts of different things, but you're able to virtually kind of say, hey, where are things going along with that? I'm just kind of scribbling on some paper right here. But that's what's kind of going on and happening. Any questions? I know that's like, yes, Cheryl.
It's not really a question, it's a comment. What I see is an entrepreneur who comes in who has a small business. You allow him to be able to function and do what he needs to do without having to have all these extra players come in, because now he can do what he needs to do. And then as he grows, you still have this basic structure built here that he can add other people in, and so it allows it to grow with him. But I think one of the neatest things is this object over time, just the recording of when something happens and to know why it happened and what you did and what was going on. It just amazes me that more people don't do that, because, I mean, that really is what tells you the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, when did I do this? Oh, I did this here. Oh, well, how did this get to be like this? Oh, I remember I did. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I can do one thing that seems logical one day, and a week later come back and go, what did I do? But I recorded it.
Correct.
And it did it for me, and I don't have to go, okay, what was it I did now? It's recorded.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. Those are great comments. And we did not come up with this, okay? There are some great brains that have been chiming in on this. I want to give huge credit to the people who have helped with this, okay? Thousands, hundreds of people who have been users using this thing and just saying, oh, if I could just get this, if I could just get this, like, and it keeps going. My notebook is so full of stuff, like, I can't even keep up. We are soliciting help and doing a bunch of different things. But the cool thing is, I'm hoping that people see what we've done, and even if they stand on our backs and jump forward, that is awesome. We're going to welcome it. We're going to be doing training. The same stuff that we're doing right now, our entire method of how we're going to protect ourselves is protection through sharing. At some point, somebody will leapfrog us. It's just part of the game. It's part of the game. If you're playing baseball, eventually you're going to get beamed or struck out or walked or whatever, and you may not be able to hit that home run. Part of the game. I love it. I love it. Put me up to bat, coach. I'm ready to bat. Like, it's just part of the game. I'm not worried about it. We're not worried about it, meaning the other owners who are in Adilas. Stephen Birkencotter is one of the ones who actually masterminded this entire thing. And what he did is, over time, he basically said, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? Oh, yeah, but we'll probably need this or this. You know, like, he gave us projects that we weren't even ready for, and he kept advancing the ball step by step. And he had kind of the vision, like, oh my goodness, I would love to see it where we could track every penny in and every penny out. Where did it go all along its life cycle, okay? And let's start taking this thing and zipper it together, okay? Because I hate it when I have this big honking, big old gap, because I can't clear that gap unless I have a rocket pack. And that's no fun, okay? But if I bring this gap and I can kind of slowly get it closer and closer and closer together, even tying it together, I can even transact that, okay? But I just zippered the thing up from the bottom up, from where it happened. Put the people who are in charge, let them take care of whatever the action is, okay? Use your permissions and let them play in the different world that they need to play in, okay? What is their world? Okay? Maybe somebody's just up here in this area. That's their world. You let them play with it. And eventually you take good data and you slowly pass it along over time. And as you need to, you can even add to data to make it look different. But it's okay because it's all tracked over time.